The bright fluorescent lights of Westlake High School's hallway buzzed overhead as students rushed between classes. It was a typical Monday morning, with teenagers huddled in groups, laughing and chatting while trying to reach their next class before the bell rang. Jason Parker walked down the hallway like he owned it. As captain of the basketball team and the school's star player, he was used to people stepping aside when he passed. His tall, muscular frame and confident stride made him stand out in the crowd. Behind him, four of his teammates followed, all wearing their blue and gold varsity jackets that marked them as the Kings of Westlake High. "Coach says we're definitely going to state this year," Jason boasted loudly, not bothering to watch where he was going. "Scouts from Duke are coming to the game on Friday." His friends nodded in agreement, hanging on his every word. They all knew that Jason's basketball scholarship was practically guaranteed. With his 25-point average per game, colleges were lining up to recruit him. Meanwhile, Zora Williams was trying to navigate the crowded hallway with her arms full of books. She had transferred to Westlake just 3 months ago and was still learning the unwritten rules of the school. As a quiet junior who preferred studying in the library to attending pep rallies, she hadn't made many friends yet. Zora kept her head down, focused on getting to her advanced chemistry class on time. She didn't see Jason coming until it was too late. The collision happened fast. Jason, not watching where he was going, slammed right into Zora. Her books went flying across the hallway floor, papers scattering everywhere. She stumbled backward, barely catching herself before falling. "Watch where you're going," Jason snapped without even looking at who he'd hit. Zora looked up, her dark eyes meeting Jason's for just a moment. "You ran into me," she said quietly but firmly. Jason glanced down at her, his expression changing from annoyed to dismissive. He looked at the books scattered on the floor and then back at Zora. Instead of helping or apologizing, he simply stepped over her chemistry textbook and continued walking. "Whatever," he muttered, loud enough for everyone to hear. His friends laughed, one of them deliberately kicking a notebook further down the hall. They continued walking, not looking back once as Zora knelt down to gather her belongings. A few students nearby watched the scene but quickly looked away. Nobody wanted to get on Jason's bad side. His status at the school made him untouchable, and everyone knew it. Zora's cheeks burned with a mix of embarrassment and anger as she collected her books. This wasn't the first time something like this had happened since she'd arrived at Westlake. The popular students acted like they were above the rules, and nobody ever called them out. What Jason didn't know as he strutted away was that Zora wasn't alone at Westlake. Her cousin Amara Jenkins was a senior at the same school. Unlike the quiet and studious Zora, Amara was known for two things: her unwillingness to take disrespect from anyone and her black belt in judo. As Zora finally gathered the last of her papers, the warning bell rang. She was going to be late to class, but that wasn't what bothered her. It was the burning feeling of injustice that stayed with her as she hurried down the now emptying hallway. Little did Jason know, his thoughtless action that morning would set in motion a chain of events that would change everything for him. The rest of the school day dragged on for Jason Parker. After morning practice and 4 classes, he was tired and irritable. His coach had pushed the team hard, warning them that their upcoming game against Riverside High would be tough. As team captain, Jason felt the pressure weighing on his shoulders. "Man, Coach Wilson is killing us," complained Marcus, one of Jason's teammates, as they walked to the cafeteria for lunch. "My arms feel like they're gonna fall off." Jason shook his head. "You need to toughen up. This is nothing compared to what college ball will be like." As they entered the crowded cafeteria, Jason spotted a group of freshmen sitting at what had always been the basketball team's table. Without hesitation, he marched over. "Move," he said simply, staring down at them. The younger students quickly grabbed their trays and scattered, mumbling apologies. Marcus laughed. "Man, you got them trained." Jason didn't respond. His attention had been caught by something else: the girl he had bumped into that morning. She was sitting at a corner table with 2 other students, talking quietly. What bothered him was that she was looking in his direction, and he was sure she was talking about him. "That new girl is telling everyone about what happened this morning," Jason muttered to Marcus. "Making me look bad." Marcus glanced over. Who cares what some nobody says? But Jason did care. His reputation was everything. Basketball scouts looked at character as well as skill. He couldn't have rumors spreading that he was a bully or disrespectful. Not with college scholarships on the line. Throughout lunch, Jason kept glancing at Zora's table. His imagination turned her quiet conversation into a plot against him. By the time lunch ended, his mood had darkened considerably. After school, Jason headed to the gym for some extra practice. He wanted to work on his three-point shots before tomorrow's team practice. The gym was usually empty at this time, which was exactly how he liked it. As he pushed open the heavy doors, he noticed someone at the far end of the gym. A girl with her back to him was setting up equipment for what looked like a martial arts practice. She had the same height and build as the girl from that morning, and her hair was styled similarly too. Jason's frustration from the entire day boiled over. He was tired of people challenging his position at the school. First, she had made him look bad in the hallway, and now she was invading his practice time in the gym. It was time to set things straight. He strode across the polished wooden floor, his basketball shoes squeaking with each determined step. The girl still hadn't turned around, focused on arranging practice mats on the floor. "Hey," Jason called out sharply. "We need to talk about what happened this morning." The girl didn't respond, possibly not hearing him over the music playing in her earbuds. Jason reached out and grabbed her shoulder, spinning her around forcefully. "I said we need to talk." In that moment, Jason realized his mistake. Though similar in appearance, this wasn't the same girl from the hallway. This girl had different features, was slightly taller, and the look in her eyes was not one of surprise, but of calm readiness. "I don't think we've met," she said coolly, looking pointedly at his hand still gripping her shoulder. "And I don't think you want to be touching me like that." Jason didn't back down. His pride wouldn't let him. "Whatever. You people all stick together anyway. Tell your friend to stop spreading lies about me." The girl's expression hardened. "My name is Amara Jenkins, and I think you've confused me with my cousin Zora." She carefully removed her earbuds. "Now, I suggest you take your hand off me and walk away." Jason tightened his grip instead, leaning closer to intimidate her. Or what? He had no idea that he had just made the second biggest mistake of his day, and unlike the first one, this error would have immediate consequences. Time seemed to slow down in the gymnasium. Jason's fingers were still wrapped around Amara's shoulder, his face just inches from hers. The look in her eyes shifted from warning to decision. In one fluid motion, Amara grabbed Jason's wrist, twisted it outward, and stepped to the side. The movement was so fast that Jason barely registered what was happening before he felt a sharp pain shoot up his arm. His basketball-trained reflexes were no match for Amara's precision. She applied pressure to his twisted wrist while simultaneously sweeping her leg behind his knees. Jason, all 6'2" of him, went crashing to the polished gym floor with a loud thud that echoed through the empty space. The fall knocked the wind out of him. Before he could catch his breath or process what had happened, Amara had him pinned. Her knee pressed firmly against his chest, and her hand still controlled his wrist in a painful lock. "What the?" Jason gasped, trying to push her off with his free hand. Amara calmly caught his other wrist mid-swing and secured it as well. Despite her smaller frame, she had complete control over him. Years of martial arts training had taught her exactly how to use leverage against larger opponents. "Let me explain something to you," Amara said, her voice steady and controlled. "I've been training in judo since I was 7 years old. I'm a state champion 3 years running. What you just experienced was me being nice." Jason struggled against her grip, but each movement only increased the pain in his wrists. His face reddened, partly from exertion and partly from embarrassment. What Jason didn't realize was that they weren't alone. 2 freshman girls who had been setting up for volleyball practice stood frozen by the equipment closet, witnessing the entire scene. One of them had already pulled out her phone and was recording. "Get off me," Jason demanded, his voice cracking with a mix of pain and humiliation. "Are you going to apologize for grabbing me?" Amara asked calmly. "I don't apologize, To." Amara applied slightly more pressure to his wrist, cutting his sentence short as he winced in pain. "Wrong answer," she said. "Let's try again. Are you going to apologize for putting your hands on me without my permission?" Jason's eyes darted around, suddenly noticing the 2 girls watching from across the gym. The realization that others were witnessing his defeat made his stomach sink. His carefully built reputation was crumbling by the second. "Fine, I'm sorry. Just let me up," he said, no longer able to maintain his tough facade. "And what about my cousin Zora?" The one you knocked down in the hallway this morning and didn't bother to help? Amara pressed. Jason's eyes widened. How did you? Word travels fast, especially when you're rude to the new girl who happens to be my family, Amara explained. So, do you have anything to say about that? By now, Jason was desperate. Sweat beaded on his forehead, and the pain in his wrists was becoming unbearable. His teammates could walk in any minute, or worse. Coach Wilson. Okay, I'm sorry about that too. I'll apologize to her tomorrow, I swear, Jason pleaded, his voice echoing in the large space. Amara studied his face for a moment, looking for sincerity. Seemingly satisfied, she released her hold and stood up in one smooth motion, taking a step back but remaining ready in case he tried anything. Jason rolled to his side, cradling his wrists and gasping for breath. The mighty basketball captain, who had never lost a physical confrontation in his life, lay defeated on the floor of his own gym. Remember your promise, Amara said as she began gathering her things. And just so we're clear, if you ever put your hands on me or my cousin again, what happens next won't be this pleasant. As Jason slowly got to his feet, he became painfully aware of the two freshmen still watching and recording. His face burned with shame as he realized that within minutes, the video of his humiliation would be spreading throughout the school. The untouchable king of Westlake High had just been dethroned in less than 10 seconds, and there was nothing he could do about it. The next morning, Jason Parker woke up to the sound of his phone buzzing nonstop. He reached for it groggily, squinting at the screen. His stomach dropped as he saw dozens of notifications, text messages, Instagram tags, and Snapchat mentions. Everyone was talking about the same thing: the video. Dude, what happened? Read a text from Marcus. Coach wants to see you ASAP, said another from his teammate Dion. Jason sat up in bed, his wrists still sore from yesterday's encounter. He clicked on a link someone had sent him and watched in horror as the video played. The angle from which it was filmed perfectly captured his takedown and subsequent begging. Worse still, someone had added captions and slow-motion effects to highlight his humiliation. The video had over 2,000 views already. His hands shook as he closed the app. By the time Jason arrived at school, it felt like every pair of eyes was on him. Whispers followed him down the hallway. Some students didn't even try to hide their laughter. The worst part was walking past a group of freshmen who quieted immediately when they saw him, then burst into giggles after he passed. "There goes the guy who got his butt kicked by a girl," one of them said loudly enough for him to hear. Jason clenched his fists but kept walking. Getting into another confrontation was the last thing he needed. His teammates were waiting for him by his locker, their expressions a mix of concern and poorly hidden amusement. "Man, what were you thinking?" Marcus asked, leaning against the locker next to Jason's. "Everyone knows Amara Jenkins is a martial arts champion." "I didn't know who she was," Jason muttered, shoving books into his backpack. "You're lucky she didn't break your arms," Dion added. "My cousin trains at the same dojo as her. Says she's taken down guys twice her size in competitions." Jason slammed his locker shut. "Can we just drop it?" "No chance," said Marcus, pointing down the hallway. "Principal Dawson is looking for you, and he doesn't look happy." Sure enough, the school principal was making his way through the crowded hallway, his face stern as he spotted Jason. "Mr. Parker," Principal Dawson called. "My office. Now." The walk to the principal's office felt like the longest of Jason's life. Students parted to let them pass, all eyes following the fallen basketball star. As they turned the corner, Jason's heart sank further. Waiting outside the principal's office were Amara, Zora, and who appeared to be their parents. Amara's expression was neutral, but Zora looked uncomfortable with all the attention. "Have a seat, everyone," Principal Dawson said, ushering them into his office. Once they were all seated, the principal placed his hands on his desk and looked directly at Jason. "I've seen the video, Mr. Parker, and I've heard from several students about your behavior yesterday and your previous encounter with Miss Williams in the hallway." He gestured toward Zora. "Would you care to explain your actions?" Jason stared at the floor, shame washing over him. "I thought she was talking about me behind my back. I wanted her to stop." "So you decided to physically intimidate her cousin?" Mrs. Jenkins, Amara's mother, asked sharply. "I made a mistake," Jason admitted quietly. "I didn't know who she was." Would it have made a difference? Principal Dawson asked. Is physically intimidating any student acceptable behavior at this school? The question hung in the air. Jason had no good answer. Mr. Williams, Zora's father, leaned forward. My daughter transferred to this school because she was bullied at her last one. We were assured Westlake has a zero-tolerance policy for this type of behavior. We do, Principal Dawson confirmed, which is why this incident requires serious consequences. Jason's head snapped up. But what about her? He pointed at Amara. She attacked me. After you grabbed her, Principal Dawson reminded him. The video clearly shows you initiated physical contact. And my daughter defended herself, Mrs. Jenkins added. Something she's trained to do. Jason looked around the room, the reality of his situation sinking in. His basketball scholarship, his reputation, his future. Everything he had worked for was now in jeopardy because of one moment of anger. Principal Dawson folded his hands on his desk. Here's what's going to happen. Before I make my final decision, Principal Dawson continued, I want to review all the evidence. This includes not just yesterday's video, but also the hallway incident. Jason shifted uncomfortably in his chair. The hallway thing wasn't a big deal. We just bumped into each other. Principal Dawson raised an eyebrow. Is that so? Let's check the security footage, shall we? He turned to his computer and pulled up the school's security camera system. After a few clicks, he found the footage from the previous morning. The group watched in silence as the scene unfolded on screen. The video clearly showed Jason walking with his friends, not paying attention to his surroundings. The collision with Zora was more forceful than Jason had described. Her books went flying across the floor, and Jason didn't even slow down. One of his teammates had even kicked her notebook further down the hall. Zora's father's face darkened as he watched. So this is how the star basketball player treats other students. Jason stared at the floor, unable to look at anyone. There's more, Principal Dawson said gravely. He clicked through several more video clips. The new footage showed Jason and his teammates in various hallway incidents over the past few months. In one clip, they blocked a smaller student from entering the cafeteria. In another, they surrounded a sophomore at his locker, taking something from his backpack. With each new video, Jason sank lower in his chair. He had never seen these incidents from this perspective before. What had felt like harmless joking around in the moment looked a lot like bullying when viewed on camera. I've been receiving reports about your behavior for months, Jason, Principal Dawson explained. But students were afraid to come forward formally because of your status at this school. I didn't realize. Jason started, but his voice trailed off. There was no excuse he could offer. Principal Dawson turned to face the group again. Since yesterday's video went viral, my phone has been ringing non-stop. 10 different students have now come forward with their own stories about encounters with Jason and his teammates. Amara's mother spoke up. This sounds like a pattern of behavior, not an isolated incident. Exactly, Principal Dawson agreed. And that's why this requires more than just a simple detention. He pulled out a folder and placed it on his desk. Jason, you are suspended from school for 1 week, effective immediately. You'll also be suspended from the basketball team for the next 3 games. Jason's heart sank, but the scout from Juke is coming to Friday's game, he protested. You should have thought about that before you decided to intimidate another student, Principal Dawson replied firmly. Additionally, you will attend mandatory counseling sessions with Ms. Ramirez, our school psychologist, and complete 20 hours of community service. The principal turned to Amara. As for you, Miss Jenkins, while I understand you were defending yourself, we have a strict policy against physical altercations on school grounds. You will serve 2 after-school detentions this week. Amara nodded, accepting the consequence without argument. Is that all? Mr. Williams asked. What about ensuring my daughter's safety going forward? Principal Dawson nodded. I'll be meeting with the basketball coach today to address the team's behavior as a whole. And Jason will be required to make formal apologies to both Zora and Amara before returning to school. As the meeting concluded, Jason remained seated while the others filed out of the office. Coach Wilson was waiting outside, his expression making it clear he had already heard everything. Get your things, Parker, the coach said, his voice reflecting his disappointment. I'm driving you home. Your parents are waiting. As Jason followed his coach through the hallway, he noticed how different everything felt. The students who usually greeted him enthusiastically now watched him with curious or judging eyes. His teammates stood by their lockers, uncertain whether to approach him. In just 24 hours, Jason's entire world had turned upside down. The long-term consequences of his actions were just beginning to sink in. College scouts, his reputation, his future. Everything was now in question. The drive home with Coach Wilson was painfully silent. Jason stared out the window, watching familiar streets pass by as he contemplated how quickly his life had fallen apart. When they finally pulled into his driveway, Coach spoke for the first time since they'd left the school. "I've known you since you were a freshman, Parker," he said, his voice heavy with disappointment. "I've watched you grow as a player, but somewhere along the way, you forgot what it means to be a leader." Jason couldn't meet his coach's eyes. "Coach, save it?" Coach Wilson interrupted. "Your parents are waiting. We'll talk after your suspension." Jason's parents were indeed waiting, and they were furious. His father, who had once been a college basketball player himself, paced the living room with his hands clasped behind his back. His mother sat on the couch, her expression a mix of anger and concern. "What were you thinking?" his father demanded as soon as Jason walked through the door. "Do you have any idea what you've done to your future?" The lecture lasted for nearly an hour. His parents took turns expressing their disappointment and outlining the potential consequences of his actions. His phone buzzed continuously in his pocket, but he didn't dare check it. "The scab from Duke called me," his father finally said, his voice quieter now. "They're reconsidering their interest in you." Those words hit Jason like a physical blow. Duke had been his dream school since he was 10 years old. Now that dream was slipping away because of his own stupid choices. "Dad, I can fix this," Jason said desperately. His father shook his head. "This isn't something you can fix with a simple apology, Jason. You've shown poor character, and that matters to these schools just as much as your jump shot." His mother joined the conversation. "We raised you better than this. Those videos don't show the son we know." Jason sank into a chair, the weight of his actions finally hitting him. "What am I supposed to do now?" "You start by taking responsibility," his father said firmly. "Real responsibility, not just saying sorry because you got caught." Over the next few days, Jason experienced something entirely new to him: isolation. His phone, once constantly buzzing with messages from teammates and classmates, grew quieter. The few messages he did receive were from close friends asking what had happened or sharing screenshots of social media posts about him. The video had spread beyond their school now, with people adding their own comments and judgments. On the third day of this suspension, Coach Wilson visited again, this time bringing Jason's basketball gear and a stack of schoolwork. "The team had a meeting yesterday," Coach said as they sat at the kitchen table. "We talked about what it means to represent Westlake both on and off the court." Jason nodded, staring at his hands. "The thing is, Parker, you've got natural talent," Coach continued. "But talent isn't enough if you don't have character to match it." "I know that now," Jason mumbled. "Do you?" Coach challenged. "Because you have a choice to make. You can let this define you, or you can use it as a turning point." Coach slid a folder across the table. Jason opened it to find information about an anti-bullying program the school was starting. "Principal Dawson suggested you might want to get involved when you return," Coach explained. "Show that you're willing to change, not just say you are." After Coach left, Jason sat alone in his room, the folder open on his desk. For the first time in his life, basketball couldn't save him. His reputation couldn't protect him. He was facing the consequences of his actions with nowhere to hide. That evening, as he scrolled through his social media, he came across a post from Amara. Unlike the mocking comments from others, her post was thoughtful. True strength isn't about physically dominating others. It's about having the courage to stand up for what's right, even when it's difficult. Something in her words resonated with Jason. He closed his eyes, remembering the look on Zora's face when he'd knocked her books down, the fear in her eyes when he confronted Amara thinking it was her. In that moment, Jason made a decision. When he returned to school, things would be different. They'd had to be. The morning of Jason's return to school arrived with a knot of anxiety in his stomach. He had spent the weekend drafting and redrafting what he would say to Zora and Amara. Nothing sounded right. How could he apologize for months of behavior he was only now beginning to recognize as wrong? His mother dropped him off early as required by Principal Dawson. The campus was quiet, with only a few teachers and early arriving students present. Jason walked slowly toward the administration office, each step heavier than the last. Principal Dawson was waiting for him, along with Ms. Ramirez, the school psychologist. "Good morning, Jason," Principal Dawson said, his tone professional but not unkind. "Zora and Amara will be joining us shortly. Before they arrive, Ms. Ramirez wanted to check in with you." The psychologist offered a gentle smile. "How are you feeling about today, Jason?" Jason shifted in his chair, nervous, embarrassed. He paused, scared. Ms. Ramirez nodded. "Those are all normal reactions. Remember what we discussed in our session yesterday. This is about genuine change, not just getting back on the team." Before Jason could respond, there was a knock at the door. Zora entered first, followed by Amara. Both girls looked calm but guarded. They took seats across from Jason, maintaining eye contact despite his obvious discomfort. Principal Dawson spoke first. "We're here this morning for Jason to formally apologize as part of his return to school. After that, all three of you will be expected to move forward respectfully. Jason, whenever you're ready." Jason had prepared a speech, but looking at the two girls across from him, all his rehearsed words vanished. Instead, he spoke from his heart. "I've been thinking about what to say for days," he began, his voice quiet but steady. "I kept trying to find the right words to make this better, but I don't think they exist." He looked directly at Zora. "When I bumped into you in the hallway, I didn't see you as a person with feelings. I saw someone I could ignore because I thought I was more important. I was wrong, and I'm truly sorry." Zora's expression remained neutral, but she gave a small nod. Jason turned to Amara. "And when I grabbed you in the gym, I was trying to intimidate you because I was angry and used to getting my way. You had every right to defend yourself." He took a deep breath. "The truth is, I've been acting this way for so long that I stopped seeing how it affected other people. It took losing everything I care about to realize how wrong I've been." The room was silent for a moment. Principal Dawson looked at the girls. "Would either of you like to respond?" Zora spoke first, her voice soft but firm. "I accept your apology, but words are easy. It's what you do next that matters." Amara nodded in agreement. "You had power at this school and you misused it. That's why what happened in the gym went viral, because a lot of students were happy to see someone finally stand up to you." Her words stung, but Jason knew they were true. "I understand," he said. "And I want to change. Not just to get back on the team or to make colleges like me again, but because I don't want to be that person anymore." Principal Dawson seemed satisfied with the exchange. "All right. Jason, you'll be on probation for the remainder of the semester. Any reports of bullying or intimidation will result in immediate consequences. Is that clear?" "Yes, sir," Jason agreed. As they prepared to leave the office, Amara paused at the door. "I heard Coach Wilson is looking for volunteers for the community basketball clinic this weekend. Teaching kids the basics. Might be a good place to start showing that change." The suggestion surprised Jason. It wasn't forgiveness exactly, but it was an opportunity, a small opening to prove his words weren't empty. "Thanks," he said. "I'll talk to Coach about it." As he walked to his first class, Jason knew the hardest part was still ahead. The stares and whispers followed him through the hallway, but for the first time, he didn't puff out his chest or try to intimidate anyone with his presence. Instead, he walked with his head up but his shoulders relaxed, making eye contact and nodding at classmates he passed. The journey back would be long, but he had taken the first step. 3 months had passed since the incident that changed Jason Parker's life. Spring had arrived at Westlake High, bringing with it On this particular Saturday morning, Jason arrived early at the community center where he had been volunteering since his suspension ended. The smell of fresh paint filled the air as he walked through the doors. The walls, once gray and dull, were now bright with colorful murals of basketball players and inspirational quotes. "You're early today," Ms. Washington, the center's director, commented as Jason set down his gym bag. "Wanted to set up before the kids arrive," he replied, pulling out basketballs and cones. Every weekend for the past 12 weeks, Jason had taught basketball fundamentals to elementary and middle school students from the neighborhood. What had started as community service hours assigned by Principal Dawson had turned into something Jason genuinely looked forward to each week. As he arranged the cones for today's dribbling drills, he heard familiar voices behind him. Turning around, he saw Amara and Zora entering the gym, both carrying boxes of water bottles and snacks for the young players. "Need a hand with those?" Jason offered, walking over to help. "Thanks," Zora said, handing him one of the boxes. Their interaction was casual now, the tension from months ago replaced by a cautious but genuine respect. The relationship between the three had evolved gradually. At first, their interactions at school had been stiff and polite. Jason had expected Amara and Zora to reject his attempts to make amends, but to his surprise, they had given him the chance to prove himself. It was Amara who had first suggested he join the anti-bullying committee she was forming at school. Jason had hesitated, wondering if it was a setup for public humiliation, but something in her straightforward gaze had convinced him she was sincere. "The kids were asking if you're bringing the trophies today," Amara said, pulling Jason back to the present. "They want to see your medals." Jason smiled. "In my bag, thought they might like some inspiration." The door burst open as the first wave of children arrived, filling the gym with excited chatter. A small boy named Dion ran straight to Jason, basketball in hand. "Coach Jason, I've been practicing that crossover move you showed me. Wanna see?" "Absolutely," Jason replied, kneeling down to the boy's level. "Show me what you got." As the morning progressed, more children arrived, each greeted personally by Jason, Amara, or Zora. What had started as a community service requirement had grown into a proper program, with the three of them working together to teach not just basketball skills, but teamwork and respect. During a water break, Jason found himself standing next to Amara, watching the kids practice passing drills that Zora was leading. "Got your final decision letter yet?" Amara asked. Jason nodded. "Yesterday. Hampton University with a partial basketball scholarship. It wasn't Duke. That dream had indeed slipped away after the incident. But Hampton was a good school with a solid basketball program, and they had been impressed by Jason's honesty about his past mistakes and his efforts to change." "That's great," Amara said sincerely. "They're lucky to have you." "What about you?" Jason asked. "Still NYU?" "Early admission," she confirmed. "Starting their martial arts program in the fall." They fell into comfortable silence, watching the children play. So much had changed in 3 months. The viral video that had once been Jason's greatest humiliation had faded from everyone's minds, replaced by newer school dramas. His teammates had been skeptical of his transformation at first, but eventually accepted the new Jason, one who used his influence to set a better example. At Westlake, a mentoring program had been established, pairing seniors with freshmen to ease the transition to high school. Jason had been among the first to volunteer, working specifically with students who had been bullied at their previous schools. As he watched one of the smaller boys successfully make a basket, Jason felt a sense of pride that had nothing to do with his own accomplishments. This feeling, seeing others succeed because of his help, was different from any victory he'd experienced on the court. "Time for the scrimmage," Zora called out, bringing everyone back together. As the children excitedly formed teams, Jason caught sight of himself in the gym's wall mirror. The reflection showed someone he wouldn't have recognized a few months ago. Still the same height, still the same athletic build, but with a different presence entirely. His journey wasn't over. There would be more challenges, more moments of temptation to return to his old ways. But as he turned to join his young students on the court, Jason Parker knew that some defeats taught more valuable lessons than any victory ever could.